Okay, we'll call the meeting, April 14th meeting of the Urbana Free Library Board of Trustees to order. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second to that?
I second it.
Are there any questions or discussion on any of the items? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now, I would assume this is the place that I should approve the minutes of the closed session, isn't it? It makes sense. You have before you the minutes of the closed session. We're doing a hard copy. They will be collected after this, and those have to be reviewed for the public to know before they can be made public. So, and it's about a 6-month period of time. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session?
Will approve the consent agenda?
Is there a second to
Closed
that?
session.
I got you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we want to pass those down or something so we can collect them. Petitions and communications. At this time, we have a remark from Al Kagan who would like to address the board or the public as well.
Would you like me to go to the podium?
Sure.
Yeah, go to the podium. That's probably, well,
I think.
Do you need to be
we-
mic'd? Can you pick up the sound?
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
So I would like to make some brief comments relating to the budget and the strategic plan that you're going to be discussing soon. I guess it's not on tonight's agenda, but I know it's coming soon.
comments. Basic.
Yeah, and as you probably all know, I am a librarian. I'm retired now, but I'm still working pretty hard on my profession. And I got this brand new book, came out just last week, I think. Michael Gorman's Our Enduring Values Revisited. Michael was one of the presidents of ALA from 2005 to 2006. And I think he's one of the best thinkers in our profession. And I wanted to read one paragraph from his book and make a few comments, and then I have one specific question, which you might be able to address during your budget discussion. Michael Gorman wrote, librarians took a wrong path in the period between the late 1960s and the late 1980s. The consequences for libraries, library education, and the future of librarianship have been both profound and malign. That wrong path was the embrace of and domination by two systems, scientific management and information technology, that are ultimately antithetical to the enduring values and mission of libraries. They are antithetical because the things their proponents and adherents value, speed, efficiency, the bottom line, information rather than knowledge, are not the primary aims of libraries and librarians. There is an alternative to the wrong path, seeing information technology and management as what they are, tools that can be useful in furthering the aims of libraries. They can assume that useful role, but the values should never have been allowed to be the main drivers of librarianship. So, and a little further on, he talking about technology, he says, our central concerns are the content, not the means of communicating that content. So from this, I take it that you ought to be focusing on the goals of serving the community, not necessarily new technology as bright, shiny toys, and that you shouldn't go overboard with the latest technologies because they'll likely be supplanted in a year or two. And I say that because I think that's exactly what the previous director did. She made those kinds of mistakes, and that's why she's no longer here. My one question about the budget relates to staffing, and I know that you're reconfiguring the service desks. And I'm looking at adult wages, and I see that the staffing for replacement librarians, hourlies, 2 hourly categories are zeroed out. Same thing for the, I think it's the children's department. And then I look at circulation. 1 clerk's position looks like it's being eliminated. And again, the hourlies are being canceled out. So I'm wondering what are the implications for those changes in the budget, and the staffing and the way the service desks are configured. And maybe when you get to the budget discussion, somebody could address that.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
thank you very much. Are there any other comments from the public? If not, I think we'll move into the presentations, the volunteer recognition program. Who's doing that? Celeste?
All right, here we go. So if you want to view this way, I have just a brief, mostly a slideshow to recognize the amazing work that the Urbana Free Library volunteers, including the library board, do to support the library and have for years and years and years and years. So what we're looking at time frame and picture-wise is the beginning of fiscal year 2013, July 1, 2013, through right about now at almost the end of fiscal year 15. Almost, well, actually much more than 5,000 hours have been donated. A number of groups don't recognize the amount of time and they don't report that to the board. So all of the Friends of the Library's activities, their book sales, sorting, all those kinds of things aren't reflected here. The foundation time isn't reflected here. All the time that the gardening volunteers do, that's not reflected here. Your board time is not reflected here, but at the department level, when people go to the departments and record their time, in the past almost 2 years, it's 5,000 hours, which is really amazing and fantastic, and we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers that help us out. So this is a slide recognizing the board and all the work that you do for us. Thank you very much. Unpaid board, you give much of your time, you give a lot to the community. We have, this is a recognition of people who are on staff who take the time to train our volunteers. Volunteers need assistance in learning what to do and how we need it done to get the best use of their time to benefit the library. So thank you all to the staff who take their time. Amber's here, Lisa's here. You all spend time getting our volunteers up to speed so that we get the most benefit of their time and they have a rewarding experience because they know that their time is being valued and provides services to the public. This is a slide recognizing the great work that the Friends do for years and years and years. They raise money at 2 or 3 book sales a year that goes straight to the different departments. They raise money through pulling out, and with Meta's help, pulling out great books that are sold at the library cafe. That particular pool of money is set aside in a special fund that we can use for special projects. The awnings that are on the front porch right now were purchased by the Friends last year. That was $8,000 that they made available to us to just go ahead and purchase those. There's still another $11,000 setting aside waiting for a nice big special project that the library needs. The other money that they get from the book sales, again, goes straight to the library into a fund, and the departments spend that on their book budgets. And for special things like, well, summer reading prize books that we give out to adults and youth for participating in summer reading. We have Diane Marland, who is also a volunteer, former board member of the library board, who also is the person in charge of planting and watering the front porch boxes that the Friends of the Library pay to put flowers in for us to beautify our environment. Cherry Alley, this is a good representation. We have the Slow and Steady statue and then the Cherry Alley pavers that the foundation members sell to support the library with funding. And of course, they have done a number of things for the library over the years. And so we have Heather's husband, who is helping putting up the mural in the children's room. This is something that is switched out every year in honor of summer reading, and we have a lot of fun with that. The kids come in and spend a lot of time looking at that, and Heather does a nice job working with the children's department seeing what are things we can reuse, being efficient with our time, what are things that need to be new, and tying it into each summer's summer reading theme. We have the ever-popular Saturday, second Saturday of the month, board game. And we have volunteers from the community that sometimes come in and have a good time playing board games and helping people learn new games and have a community interaction that they might not otherwise have. We have volunteers that deliver materials to people who are homebound in our community. Again, we couldn't do this without them, and we have some staff that volunteer doing this as well. Thank you very much for your work with that. We have Darth Vader. And we're very happy. We will be offering a couple of Star Wars programs this year, actually. And sometimes we pay people to come in, and sometimes they come in as volunteers because it's fun to be Darth Vader at the public library. Fairy Tale Ball this Friday night. Again, lots of volunteers helped make this happen. And Miss Champagne Urbana came in and spent time with us and had lots of photo opportunities with our lovely princesses and princes that like to attend. This is an amazing program that I just love that we have. This is the Read to the Horses event, and so people bring in their miniature horses, and the kids and the adults and the staff love having the horses in this very room. And I have to have 2 horse pictures because sometimes the horses get to go to other parts of the library, which is really great. And this letter, I just think this is a fantastic letter. Dear Rascal, I had a nice time reading to you. P.S. I love you. With a heart. Like, the library is about reading and books and knowledge, and it's also about experience that you have in a communal way. And I'm very proud that we offer such a diversity of experiences, again, in part with our volunteer partners in the community. And then we have Read to the Dog. And this kid looks like he's Buzz Lightyear or something, too, so I'm not sure what all is happening that day, or if it was a special day, or if he just came and dressed like that because he was Buzz Lightyear or whomever that day. But I just love the dogs just hanging out, being read to. We have our technology volunteers. We have a great need in our community for people to learn how to use technology in a way that benefits them. And Amber coordinates the program with the technology volunteers who spend one-on-one time working with our patrons to teach them what they need to know when they need to know it in their particular way. We have a number of people that volunteer from organizations across the community as well as individual people in our Teen Open Lab. This young lady is a woman who had been a member, attendee of the Teen Open Lab for a number of years, and now she comes back and volunteers and is an amazing artist and has helped other people advance their drawing skills. And then we have one of our other community volunteers, and this is just a thumbs up. Thank you to all our volunteers. We'll be recognizing our volunteers at a special program on Monday from 7 to 8:30 upstairs in the room. Thank you, Busey Mills room. So, just want to take a moment to say it's Volunteer Month, and this is National Library Week, so it's a perfect opportunity to highlight both things. Great. I will close this and see what happens. All right.
Very nice.
A couple years ago, I worked on a project in which we took the volunteer hours. There is a national organization that determines the dollar value for a volunteer. And you might want to put that dollar value with this. Was it 5,000?
And that's a low end.
That's the low end. And tell us what it's really financially people are doing for us.
Sure.
It speaks highly.
I will check on
I think
that
it's,
number.
does anybody else know about this figure? It's like $30 an hour, I think, that they
Wow.
classify, or maybe it's less than that, but it's enough that it speaks. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And it's a year in review.
So it's me again. I'll
Sure.
just stand in the middle. So this way I can see everyone. What I want to do is, in a quick moment, summarize my year in review. I'm thrilled to have been here just over a year. At the end of this fiscal year, we'll do an official year review of the Urbana Free Library with all the statistics and financials that we'll have at the end of the fiscal year. At the beginning of this fiscal year and at the end of last year, I didn't have a lot of experience here because I'd only been here a couple of months. So I want to make sure that we can hit some highlights now and know that more is coming with beautiful slides to highlight the great work that's happening at this library. This, as you know, is a fantastic library. It also faces some challenges. On my third day on the job last year, we received notice from the city that $242,000 was being cut from the budget. So I'm proud to say that as a team, we pulled together and found the money to develop a budget that you could pass right away, holding some positions open, and that you work with us to have us bring forward to other budgets to modify our approaches so that we could afford not only to live within that budget cut, but to thrive and to also, when the city settled their union contracts, receiving no extra money from the city as we had in the past, give the staff the retro pay and the raises for this year within this year's budget and with a little bit of last year's fund balance, which would have happened, the money would have come out of the fund balance had the raises passed in the appropriate fiscal year. So we have a balanced budget this year with money being set aside for the future, for facilities concerns that we know we have. We need windows, we need new porch work, we need boiler and chiller air handler work. Kathy wrote a grant for that this year. It was a really great experience to pull the information together. We didn't get the Live and Learn grant this year. We can reapply next year, but in going through the process, we're well poised to apply for other grant funding opportunities because the boiler and air handler are both 20 years over their expected lifespan. And if we're not proactive about replacing it, they will fail at a point that's not as convenient than if we pick the time and the place. So in this year's budget, we put aside over $13,000 for future capital expenses. In the finance policy that we have got some adjustments on, it says that the library doesn't rely on itself to take care of funding issues for big capital expenses, that the library will rely on the city. Well, we can't really make that a policy because the city, can't be held to our policy decisions. So the city is not in a place to have money from its VERG fund come to pay for library capital expenses. We need to be preparing for that. It's discussed in our 5-year financial plan, and we're moving ahead down that path. We have some concerns about safety and security in our library. We have a really great patron committee that helped develop a brand new set of patron rules of behavior, which has been rolled out, approved by the board, rolled out to the staff. We've had training to make it easier, hopefully easier, to handle difficult circumstances that the staff find themselves in on sometimes a daily basis, and handling community concerns that particular people have. So I'm really proud of the work that staff have done in raising their concerns and having us address them. We have more issues that we need to handle, and we'll continue to do that. We have great partnerships and have created more. For example, we have a young lady here tonight from the Urbana Free Library. I'm nervous. The Urbana School District, who is going to start filming the board meetings. Some of the students are interested in filming sports events, and some of the students are interested in filming non-sporting events. So we're partnering with the schools to provide the students opportunities to learn how to craft in filming different community events, making it available online. And so we'll be working with the schools for the near future on that. I'm sure excited about that. When I started our policies, many of them were back from the 90s. We have systematically been addressing them. A couple more are on the agenda today that we discovered were not fully compliant with the law. We are addressing things that we see are not fully compliant with the law. We'll keep our eyes open, and we are moving ahead with making things best practices as well as fully legally compliant. We're celebrating 100 years of community service this year. This is a community that loves its library, and we love being here to serve it. There have been many great programs and many great programs to come. If you look at our year-to-date stats comparing this fiscal year to last fiscal year, you don't have this part. I have a special new column. And in this special new column, you can see year-to-date, July through March. And in many categories, the library is not doing as well as it did last year. There's some areas where it's up, and there's many areas where it's down. But one area that we are really thriving in is that year-to-date, this time last year, the library had 558 programs. This fiscal year, we've had 652 programs, which is really a great number of things. People are coming to live action Candyland. We had 132 people attend that event. We had a lovely series of graphic novel programs. I know I attended one that I think it was 65 people attended. We've got wonderful music programming for adults and youth. We coordinate in our community with Boneyard and other types of community festival events. So far, this year we've had 19,720 people attend different library events, and the year is not done. So I just want to say thank you for the time you have allowed me to grow into 1 year into this position, and I look forward to many more great things in the future. And a full report with slides in July. Any questions or comments?
The one comment I would make about compliance, you say that we're out of compliance with law. Some of these statutes have been corrected since we last reviewed, so it's not like we have ignored them. It's just that it's happened now, and so
Sure.
we're looking at them. So don't get alarmed that we're,
Oh, there's nothing to be alarmed about. We keep our eye on the ball. When we see that something is not quite right, we assess it, and then we move ahead to fix it, which is why we're here with these couple of things today. All right, thank you for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, let's move to the items for action and discussion. Building and grounds, do we have any kind of report? I think not. Technology. We're moving along. I think your report covered what we needed to have. Okay, in the finance area, there are a number of things that we need to do. The report of the finance committee, I guess we'll take them as they come. You have before you that plan, budget for 15. May I have a motion to approve that?
Will we approve the finance policy?
Well, I think it's really the 15 budget
It's the
revision.
budget.
Oh, the budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Budget revision, is that what you?
Yeah, the budget revisions.
Yeah.
Fiscal year 15.
Now,
Is there a second to that?
The finance committee, you want to discuss, is there a
Well, we'll discuss it
report
after we have
to
the
add?
motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Oh, those are
Okay.
two,
Okay.
they're not two different
There's
things?
two different things here, Chris.
They're
Is it two different things? I'm
There's a
sorry.
couple different things,
Yeah,
yeah.
you've got the regular,
You want the report of the finance committee, which is a discussion item.
Okay, let's take them in order. Report of the finance committee. That's, I'll take it, Jane, that you
So I was going
you
to
did a
discuss
second.
it.
Okay, questions to that? The report of the finance committee.
I was at the finance committee meeting with Beth and Mark, and we met briefly to talk about ideas on being fiscally sound for next year's budget. It's pretty much the gist.
Yeah, and I think that in terms of the policy, we're trying to acknowledge that we don't deal with the budget a couple months a year, we deal with it every month.
Every month.
Particularly the last couple of years and the next few years.
So there isn't a report that we need to discuss? Or any,
There's the draft of the policy manual, which is what we're looking at right now, and the rest of it will be in terms of the budget.
right, okay.
Other questions?
Beth, I don't know, you want to add anything to that?
no, that was, yeah, that's exactly where we are.
This is the finance committee.
We still have the complied statutes.
Okay, all those in favor of the finance committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, then the FY 15 budget revision. That's where I thought we were, so I'm sorry.
Okay, we're getting there.
Is there a motion for that approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments or discussion?
The comment that Al had about the
Wages.
zeroing out the wages.
Sure.
Do you want to address that, Celeste?
I'd be happy to. In the budget discussion for next year's budget, it says, multiple departmental hourly wage lines have been consolidated into each department's hourly schedule line for simplicity and efficiency. So some departments had 4 or 5 hourly lines, hourly scheduled, hourly replacement, hourly special project, hourly whatever else. And in talking to the department directors, they said, wow, this is really complicated. Staff don't always know which is the right line. The finance policy says we can mush those together anyways. So the thought was we could get by easily and more efficiently with having one line. So that's why it's consolidated.
So where is that line?
Oh, so you have the budget in front of you? So there were multiple, I've got the wrong one in front. Which year are you looking at?
15.
15
That should be.
with the orange highlights on it? So it would be the top line. So for example, children's, I've got librarian hourly scheduled. Oh, I'm sorry, you want to look in the 16. 16 is where they're summarized. So in any of these departments, the hourly lines were broken out. And in the 16 budget, they're just summarized into one line.
In other words, where, okay, let's go to the children.
Sure.
hourly RPL.
That'd be replacing hours.
Okay, 24,000 for 13 to 15. Change is minus 24,931
Right,
and 0 for 16.
right, so it is becoming less, and it's summarized into one field. So we've changed staffing levels in different ways, and we have summarized things into one particular line.
And what does it mean for the service desk? That was part of my question.
Okay, so the service desks are being staffed at the same number of hours.
And,
We are utilizing the talents of different staff across the library.
okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Are there other questions? We have a motion on the floor for approval of the FY15 budget revision. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, got mixed in, but it's there now, then, the FY16 budget proposal. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion. One of the things that I think we should probably state is we have put in increases. That's providing, and everybody in this room knows that things are going down all over the place, city, state. We may not be able to do that. So I think that even if we approve this budget, we cannot say that that necessarily will be our budget, final budget. We have to wait until the governor and the mayor and everybody else decides on everything before we could even, those may not come about. Celeste, would you like to add to that?
So sure, what I can say is this, the city, you're gonna pass a budget tonight, and we're gonna take it to the city, and the city council will confirm or deny the request that we have for funding, which is IMRF, FICA, Medicare, as well as the amount that they have already designated officially with the property tax levy. Now, the library could be impacted if the governor changes the amount of per capita funds that go to libraries across the state. And if the legislature passes a budget that changes how much money in personal property tax that goes through the cities to the library, so between property tax and the per capita, it's about $140,000. If those were to go away, that's $140,000 that's not in our budget. Now, we don't know that that will happen, but I've been advised by city colleagues to not have staff salary increases until those things are set. So I would ask you to consider that.
I would agree with that, because, and the amount coming from the state is very likely to be lower,
We
much
don't-
lower.
And we will make appropriate suggestions to you when we know what the state budget is, because it is important that we compensate our really great staff in a really great way.
We've had other discussions that is a priority. As the board, we'd like to see the staff be compensated. We understand this is a budget, and a budget that not necessarily translate into what's actually going to happen, but you put your best hopes in that budget.
Well, we want to try to do as much of it as we can, too. Look at the salaries, the levels for the staff. We have a great staff, and they should be the highest paid in the state. I wish we could get there. We want great hours. We want to keep them, so the public can come when they're used to coming. We don't want to be closing down on a Saturday or a Sunday or a couple of evenings a week. We don't want to core the place out so that there's plenty of books and plenty of resources here, but nobody to help people when they walk in. So I guess this isn't just based on wishful thinking. I mean, our director has some sense of justification for going from people she's been talking with to put this budget together. Now, that may mean that all that considered, it may not happen that way, but this is the best thing we've got at the time. Not overly optimistic and not too gloomy.
Bill, do you care to remark about what you expect from the city?
We haven't seen a budget proposal yet. I guess that we would still continue to do what we did last year as far as IMRF goes. We did FICA, we did all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect it to be the same. I haven't heard any different. You never know.
Yeah.
I did have a question about the circulation wages.
Mhm.
I wasn't here last time, so maybe you could have talked about that. It seemed to be the one that went down a lot. Did you cut a position there, or?
We've had turnover in positions, and we are staffing a little bit lighter at those desks, and we have circulation staff working on all the different stations on the first floor. We want to make sure people get their minimum number of hours that we've guaranteed them. But we have found that our circulation between fiscal year 13 and 14, circulation went down 50,000 items. We're finding that 13 to 15% of the items are self-checked every month. And then we have a number of downloads happening. So 16 to 17% of the items that we have in circulation are actually not being touched by the staff on the way out the door. So we're,
Would you say, what percentage are you saying is self-check not being touched by staff?
well, it's in your stat sheet.
It's
Oh,
in the
is it?
stat, yes,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. The circulation's actually gone up, but the
Number of
self-check
pennies.
has really increased immensely.
So last
Makes
year,
a huge difference.
being down by 50,000 items was a 10-year low, basically. So we're up this year, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's still underneath our 10-year low, and a number of the items are actually being self-checked. So
Yeah.
what is being handled by staff is down significantly.
Yeah. It's an interesting development.
So a lot of that, we were expecting some savings from the new self-check, but I think kind of what Al said about technology, one of the advantages of implementing technology is to allow more time, more person time too. I mean,
Right.
you substitute some of your maybe thankless, thoughtless tasks with technology and have more person-to-person time. So are you saying that that is occurring? Do people have more time to spend with customers, with, what do you call them, clients, customers?
Patrons,
Patrons.
customers,
Sorry.
yes. So we are staffing so that patrons and staff can interact with each other. And we've gotten some feedback that, for example, on Saturdays, it was really, we had tried a new staffing schedule for 5 or 6 weeks, and we got some strong feedback that it was going fairly well, but there were a couple of tweaks, and one of which was Saturday afternoons were really busy. So given that feedback, we've provided an extra staff person on Saturday afternoons. So what we want to do is continue to be responsive. Champaign Public Library expects to be closed Thursday nights earlier. We expect to see more traffic Thursday nights, but until they actually close and people drive over, we don't know what that impact will be. So we are poised to make some decisions depending on the impact. So the current budget level and staffing level are things we know that we can sustain into the future. These salary levels, we know that we can sustain going forward. This is a sustainable budget that provides excellent customer service.
Any questions, other questions?
Well, the city is living in the same
Yeah.
limbo that everybody else is. So I think everybody is passing budgets with the understanding that we're about to do here, right?
Yeah, I guess the only other comment I'd have would be maybe with the retro pay, it seemed like those were pretty close to inflation. This one is a little above what inflation is. So if we're short other places of the budget, I would consider, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I would consider a smaller increase and to fill in, where you need to in other areas. But I don't know, what your priorities are. If you're missing things in the budget, that's just.
But the retro pay is another issue.
We already did that, right?
We already
We
did
did
that.
that.
Yeah. I mean, that was close to the inflation level. It was like 1.5%, 2%, something like that.
1.5 and then 1.75.
Yeah, and this one's 2.75, and inflation this year has been closer to 1. So it's a good raise. I mean, I'm sure people deserve it, but I'm just saying that if there's other places that are hurting, I'd prefer to see a smaller increase if you need to use it.
Mhm. We were aiming to match what the 3 unions at the city are offering their employees. And if you were to flip to the back page, something I have heard you say, and I've heard city council say is, well, what does it really cost to run the library? And what is the impact on decisions you're making on the fund balance? And so we've added this new section at the end, and if you were to look, in addition to having the budget that's there, this budget allows us to put aside money, $14,000 for capital expenses in the future, which, we could fund that with a lot of money. And But also, there's some extra money, there's $4,400 that has not been allocated to anything else as a tiny little buffer. So I feel very good about this budget, and I will take that under advisement, especially if the state doesn't give us as much as we expect. I mean, if the per capita were to go away, which I don't expect it to, but that's the raises right there. Like 50 grand, that's a lot of the raises. So we would be hard pressed to find that. Now, if that doesn't go away, then we're in really good shape. This is a good budget.
And I guess my question was, the city is going with the 2.75?
The three city unions are obliging the city to go with that. There
Okay.
are non-union staff, and what will happen with non-union staff is yet to be determined. The budgets aren't due to the finance officer yet. So they are not, we are always a little bit ahead of the game planning-wise, because we have to have it ready that you've approved it before we can talk to the mayor about it.
But the trend has been that the city gives non-union the same as the union,
That's
right?
what the practice has been.
Yeah.
And in the past, the city gave the library extra to fund that here. That practice has stopped. We found it in our budget.
Other questions? All those in favor of passing the FY16 proposed budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we have in our budgetary financial policy that we will approve any expenditure over $10,000. And we have had a bill that I think probably has gone through before, but it was not noted by this, I mean, we caught it, that the Champaign Public Library grant for our Polaris and other costs has gone up. Well, not necessarily gone up, but it's over 10,000. So we need a motion to approve the expenditure. It's not anything out of the line, it's there, but it's just more than 10,000, right?
Do you have that with you, Becky? We will, we'll get that for you in a second. Can we come back to that? The
Okay.
Polaris system that we have, that is the card catalog and the integrated library system, and then the extra add-on features like Library Elf, so people can manage their accounts in a certain way. Our share of that is over $20,000 a year. And so we thought we'd bring it to you so you could approve, but you'll probably want to have the exact number, so if you give us a second, we'll scan right
Okay,
grab that.
okay.
And then just could I ask, so they give this, they assess us our costs on an annual basis?
Correct.
And does it match up with fiscal years?
It usually comes in January,
Okay. All right, so-
and it
so
just
no.
came a little bit later this year, so no.
Okay.
It's more of a calendar year.
Okay, so just as far as our own budgeting
Yes.
for it, so that,
And we, yeah, it's in the budget, and that's all set.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
okay. But if, so we budget for it, but then January comes and the assessment is much bigger than we would have expected.
Yeah, they, a couple things went up a tiny little bit, but it's very close.
And it's not that, we just hadn't voted on it before in our
Yeah.
budget
Right, this is-
policy, so
right,
we
that's
should.
It's almost a pro forma thing, but we need to vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? All those in favor of that motion?
We have the
Oh, no,
motion.
you're
We'd like
getting,
the
you're
number. Why don't we
getting,
wait
we're
till we have the
getting,
exact
Becky's
number
coming
for the
chased after.
And I said scamper only because I thought I was gonna go scamper and get it, so,
Okay.
but Becky is too fast for me.
Okay, let's move on to policy then. You had before you, and we had handed out last time, the Children's Services Collection Management. I don't see anything drastic. Do I have a motion to approve that?
That was a good scamper.
That's very fast, Becky.
Excellent. I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on that policy? Does the Children's Department have any concerns?
The only change was the date at the top didn't match the date at the end.
I couldn't find anything.
Yeah,
so-
that was the only thing that was changed, and it just made sense to make it match, because we're putting these in binders and people are looking at them and wondering why things don't match.
Okay. All those in favor of that policy dated, say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, now we have some figures for the
The total
Polaris.
bill is $27,788.81. We'll just pass that around.
Last page.
And we do it twice, we're paid, billed twice?
We're billed for a couple different things. This is one particular package. This is the main bill of the year. The other ones.
This is the main
lower.
bill.
So you want
Okay.
a motion to approve
Approve.
payment of this bill?
Yes.
This bill,
So
27.
I make a motion to pay this bill.
Okay. Is there a
The
second?
dollar amount is
Right at the bottom.
Right there, 27.
27,788.
788.81.
81 cents. Let's make sure we get that right.
Yes.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? You want to pass it down to the bill and home? Like we say, this is not a shockaroo, it's just that we're getting back into what we should be. All those in favor of the Polaris bill to the Champaign Public Library, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Okay, you have the circulation and interlibrary loan for discussion tonight. Are there questions after you
We
have
also
that?
have bylaws.
The bylaws?
Oh,
Bylaws is next.
bylaws, action.
It's after that,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
And I
children's
have a
services.
question there.
Yes.
I'm sorry I missed last month's meeting, but on, well, page 2, let's see, what would that be?
Which one?
For the children's,
This is the bylaws.
bylaws of the board.
So it's 1A, 2H, removal for cause. The second thing is fails to meet attendance requirements as specified in section 1A4F. If we look at 4F, that has to do with public comment. 4G, I think is the one you mean, that's attendance at meetings.
I will take a look at that. This is not one that we talked about last month. This is a non-substantive change. This is where we were actually citing the wrong statute
Okay.
and calling it an article, not an act.
I was going to say, why don't we call that a typo and not worry about it? But it needs to be fixed, because if you go to that section, you wonder, well, why
Yeah.
is that being cited?
And
But
Article
every-
5 is correct, it's not an act.
According to Kurt Borman at the city, this isn't written right. And he pulled language for me.
But the Illinois compiled statutes do not use the word act. I'm 98% positive. It's a chapter, an article, a paragraph, but it's not an act.
It's usually the chapter number, so what's the library, chapter 15 or?
Look it up on the Illinois
Well,
General
but
Assembly website.
usually it's like it's chapter, then ILCS 5 or whatever, the act number comes after ILCS, but they don't always call it act because sometimes it's a code. So it's either act or code, but they don't
I've never
usually,
seen it used.
they don't usually say act. It's usually just 65 ILCS 15 or something.
So do we
slash
need to table this
article.
till that gets?
Yes.
You're still a board, you still have authority to act. I was just going with what Kurt said, so I'd be happy to bring you back different language next.
I
next
think
Well,
month.
that's fine, I'll look it up again, but I've never seen
Let's
it.
get the payment.
I haven't either, I wondered about that. I thought, well, it's been a while since I've looked at them.
Well, I look
Maybe
at
they
it all
changed
day
the
long.
body
I've never
language.
seen it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
well,
I'll look it up, and if he has a, can we have a computer?
I know.
Tell you what, after, let's see.
Okay. Go to the
Okay,
Illinois
Why
General.
don't we just hold
Well,
off?
let's table it.
Let's table it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, do we need to
Do
vote
we
on
need a
tabling
motion
it?
for a table?
Table this motion
Second.
until next
You
month.
move, that was a move motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All those in favor of tabling this?
It just takes a table motion and 1 second, and it's done.
Oh, I don't need a vote.
Don't need a
No, you
vote.
don't need
Okay,
to vote.
for tabling, okay. Robert's rules, until you got them down.
Circulation.
Circulation and interlibrary loan policy you have in your hands. Are there questions? This is an evening that you can raise some questions. You may want to study them further. Does anybody in the audience have any concern as to the circulation and interlibrary loan? Okay. If not, we will have these on our agenda for next month's meeting. Now, the finance policy.
I do have some things there, and I think what would be most efficient is to give my comments to Celeste, and she can see what makes sense that I've raised. But I do have one, I'll call it a typo. Page 2C, non-tax revenue for the general fund. The principal non-tax component principal, P-A-L, please, not P-L-E.
That's a typo.
Yes, it's a typo. Sorry,
So the two things that
but I
we're
do have some other things that I've.
addressing here have to do with being compliant with library,
Yeah.
library rules in the state, and then that's the pieces we're looking at. The circulation policy needs to be addressed from top to bottom, but there are a couple things that came to our attention, and that we're gonna address those two particular things in here.
Well, let me ask one question. Why do we include the history of the CPPR? Originally, the percentage, blah, 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 blah. Do we really need that in our policies?
Don't have to.
Okay, well, that's one of the things I'm asking. I'll give these to you later.
Other questions? Okay, that will be for finalization next month. I want to go back and ask Celeste a question of our bylaws. We've got in Section 2C, 5-year financial plan. We can't plan for 1 year at a time. Should we be having that in for 5 years?
There is a library 5-year financial plan, actually, and we used it to make budgeting decisions.
Okay, so it's really just a planning tool. It's not going to hold us to feet to the fire, because I'm thinking the way things are, 5
Correct.
years are just so far out.
Those are hopes, and that's
Okay.
things that you want to work
Dream.
toward. It's a useful thing to have.
Especially for facilities-related things.
Oh, facilities. yeah.
Right, and then
Yeah,
you take
yeah.
a look at when things are going to
Yes.
start getting to
Okay.
the end of their lives, and then you try to do some estimation, and it's nice if you have a 5-year time frame for that.
Okay, I see. Education and training, do we have any reports? If not, well, we'll move on to the liaison reports.
Finance policy?
Finance,
Was there anything about the finance policy?
what is the document?
We did,
Did you?
We should-
Yeah, we had done.
we should-
that was-
Yeah.
That was a principal.
The finance was just for discussion now.
that's just for
Yeah,
discussion.
right, it's the next
We didn't
time.
vote on it, and
Right, okay.
this is
Yeah.
for you.
Okay,
I guess the question is whether anybody else has something to say.
we'll have time next time to discuss it too, because you may want to study it a little more. Friends of the Library report, anything, Anna?
Yes, they had a meeting, very good meeting. Library sale, which Celeste also mentions in her report, was successful. They had some discussion about maybe going to a third, but that's still,
They go back and forth.
yeah, they're talking about that possibility. Library book sales all over the country are going down, so whether it's worth it to go through the effort of putting 3 of those together a year is moot at this point, but they're going to revisit it. They're concerned about the gardens, but that's ongoing. It was a good
They're
meeting.
contemplating 2 book sales, aren't they, rather than
They're
3?
talking about the possibility of going back to 3, but I'm not going to predict.
Yeah.
But again, it was a good meeting. Anything that I'm missing?
I can say that the library has someone who is going to help out with the garden situation. Eleanor Brown, Assistant Circulation Manager, is going to facilitate the volunteers who, she's going to be the volunteer coordinator. Because we have a number of people who like to volunteer in the gardens, but there's no person to put it all together so that people aren't watering on the same day or buying plants so we'll have some
Pulling
consistency.
each other's plants out, there was some concern about that.
There was some concern
Yeah.
about that, and the Friends put money aside every year for the gardens, and so Eleanor can help manage that process with the Friends. Some of the volunteers have questions, so I think she will do a fine job. I know she will.
That's great.
The Foundation Board, Celeste and I met with them. She gave a wonderful report to them. They were extremely pleased, but they're actually at the point that they're wanting to add members. So if somebody's got a suggestion as to somebody we might talk with, it doesn't mean that they're automatically appointed, but if anybody in the audience even has a suggestion as to who might go on the Library Foundation Board, they're wanting to add to that. Illinois Heartland Library System, anything? No.
Do we just appoint those? How do they elect those? How's the foundation board appointed?
They elect them themselves.
Okay.
They,
So
okay.
there's nominate, then they elect a new member. Is there a certain number of board members there's supposed to be?
They need to have between 10 and 15. Some are representatives. For example, Chris is an ex
Ex-Im.
officio member from the library board. There's a member from the Friends. I'm on it as well. And then they have a certain number of officers who are elected as well as general board members. So they're looking to increase their number. They currently have 10. One person's coming off because her term is up. And they found 2 more people to join, but that still gives them 4 extra slots. And so they've been reaching out into the community to see if other people would be interested in being the foundation
And we
board.
might tell you so that you have some idea of if you are talking to people, they're meeting at noon time, so it's not an evening meeting.
And the next meeting is next Tuesday at noon. It's normally the 4th Wednesday, but there was a conflict, so it's next Tuesday at noon.
Okay, moving on to staff reports. Celeste, anything additional?
Nope.
Could I make a comment?
Surely.
On 2 things. First of all, you mentioned the DMV event here.
Yes.
People wanting it outside the door. I talked to Scott Bennett about this event, and he was just so thrilled. First of all, with the response by our library director about holding this event. He had tried elsewhere and gotten the runaround. And so this was just such a wonderful place and such a terrific event. He'd like to do it again. So
Great.
he was very, very pleased to have been able to do this. And the response in the community, I then ran into a number of people who were here, and they said, that was just amazing. Because they've been driving to Monticello and Timbuktu and who knows where. So anyway, so thanks for doing that.
Scott shared me that thought too, so.
Oh, good. Well, we're working, I should say Mary is working with his office to put on a community shredding event so that when people have shredding that they'd like to have happen.
Especially at this time of year.
This time of year is
Yes,
perfect.
next time.
This is something Mary has wanted to do for a long time. It has been a lot of work. She wouldn't admit that, but I will admit it for her.
I haven't done it yet. We don't know any volunteers, and we couldn't do it without Blake Weaver lending us his lot across the street on Cedar. The original plan was to have it in our parking lot, which would have been instant gridlock, so that has much better traffic counts.
As I understand, they bring a vehicle in and that's,
That's a terrific
AT&T
idea.
is bringing a shredding truck. We're limiting it to private citizens, 2 boxes apiece.
That's wonderful.
have we got a date set?
Saturday, May 2nd. Not sure it's 9 to 12 or 11 to 1, or 10 to 1 yet.
Great. Good service, Trevor. And then I wanted to congratulate you on being accepted to the statewide Public Library Management Institute. I think that's terrific.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. I think we all need to say,
Kathy, anything additional? We might say that Celeste kind of rolled all this together, so if you've got any additional things.
The only thing I will say is that Friday night is the fairy tale ball,
Yes,
and everybody's been working very hard on that. Children's services, teen services, adult services is also working on it, and of course, a lot of the staff have been putting together book lists and displays, so everybody's been doing a great job, and we're looking forward to 6 to 9 this Friday night.
and if anybody in this room has not come, you've got to see it in action. Kids all over the place, loving it.
I have a tiara, I can lend one of you.
How many attendees did we have last year?
Last year, 1,600 people.
it's just mind-boggling.
It is.
They weren't here all at one time, but most of them.
No, in the 3-hour period, or a little bit more than that, we had 1,600 people.
Yeah.
So.
And for those of you who don't know, Fred Schliff is the primary donor of that activity. Mary, anything else?
No.
Good. Lori? No? Anka? Don? Gee, we're going to move it.
I got the notice about painting online.
Yes, yes,
That was good.
yeah. And we've had some success with it, so I think it's a good improvement.
In unfinished business, we talked last month that we were going to at least begin discussions as to what we would do with strategic plan. Have you put together some thoughts that you were going to look at other possibilities?
I do have some thoughts, and so just as a talking out loud kind
This
of
is just a
thing.
talking out loud.
What we had talked about last month, just as a catch-up for people, is that the board had said it would revisit, revise, readjust, look at the strategic plan, and you are doing that, and we're bringing you information about that process. One thing to note is that the strategic plan currently in place will expire June 30th of 2016. So you as the board will be working through this process, whether you do the exact thing you did before, which I don't expect to be the case, or whether we do something completely different. This is a process we will be going through one way or the other. So there's different approaches that you can take. There's the strategic plan like the kind we have right now. There's something more like the city does that's goals set by the board that they review at a particular time. So the board sets goals and then staff work towards those goals. They don't call it a strategic plan. They set goals and you work on things underneath that. Arlington Heights Memorial Library, which is an award-winning library upstate a bit, they don't have a particular strategic plan. They also set board goals. And then the frontline staff actually are the ones that determine what are good things to do as far as daily activities to help support that plan. So that's a very different approach than the library has taken, and one that I want to bring you more information on. And then there is something that Orion Township in Michigan does. They have a beautiful just graphic. So the whole strategic plan fits on one page, and it's like inputs, finance, and then outcomes. So what is it you've got? What are you going to put into it, whether it's staff time or financiers or whatever else, and then what do you want to get at the end? And the whole plan is just one pictograph. Of course, on the back end, there's more work that happens behind the scenes to follow up, but what I want to do is see if those kinds of things, having those kinds of options is interesting to you, and if those are, then I can bring you some more information. Questions you'll want to answer are we doing it all as a library board and staff and community? Are we hiring a consultant to lead a particular process? Or would we be hiring a consultant to do a particular thing like a community survey? So there are different elements that you'll want to think about as far as what the process will be and what the outcome is that you want. And so in the next couple months, we'll be bringing you some ideas along those different flow charts of what you can end up with as well as how we get there. Because of course, how we get there is really important.
I particularly like the idea of a broad and then let staff flesh it out.
Mm-hmm.
Broad categories and goals. I like that. I don't know. Versus even the strategic plan that we have. Does anybody else got comments? This is the time.
I think I like the idea of looking at what different planning options are.
Yes.
I also would favor using the resources in the community to help develop a plan instead of hiring some firm somewhere else. I think we've got enough expertise in this community that we can put to work, and I suspect ask us to volunteer and we'll get people out.
Sometimes I like the approach where you set a strategic vision, but then you set some concrete goals and objectives. So it's kind of hard to set the goals and objectives without a strategic vision. And then how you set the vision, you can do that with your community input, with your staff input, with your board input.
We'll be interested to see the options that you bring to us, but I agree, I'm not sure we need a consultant. And I think we do have a lot of very talented people on the staff and in the community, and let's turn to them this time.
Any comments down here? Those of us who've been through it knows that there's some negatives and positives.
And I
I'll
agree
wait
with the
until we
consultant,
hear.
unless it's a very, very specific thing you might
Yeah.
need. Because I think a consultant, they almost come in with a preconceived agenda, and I think that's what happened the last time.
That's what happened.
They really don't know the community, and they just have some sort of theoretical wash in their head about what's going to happen, and they haven't really looked at, or they aren't here long enough to really get the feel of the place, if that's the right word.
And I would solicit from the public comments to me or to Celeste as to what you would like to see, because I think that we do feel that it's your library, and we only serve you. So I think if you want to give us some ideas, even people that might serve on it that you think are well-qualified and knowledgeable of our community, I think that's what happened last time. Our community was not number one. And the mechanics that need to be done in terms of running a library, we would appreciate those remarks. And if you want
to be honest, if we had to look at how we were a year ago, before our new director joined, it was so heartbroken. And now we have established this open discussion, It's very overwhelming to me to see how on both sides, we get to understanding each other, So bringing a consultant with, as you said, it's more money, more discussion. So this has been my library for the last 30 years. And it's been amazing, You still have the Paris Match magazine. So this is why I am grateful to you. Yes.
Okay, let's move on down the agenda. That evaluations, and I really can't even point any fingers tonight. Those people who have received evaluations of the director, please get them in. I looked in my packet and didn't have it there, so I thought I was bringing it tonight. So I'm guilty, but get them in. We have to have that by next month. New business. The nominating committee, and I've asked 3 individuals to serve on that for the officers, and that will be reported next time in the election, then the following month. But I've asked Anho and Bill and Anna to serve on the nominating committee for the board of directors for next year. And they have agreed. Is there any other items of business that need to come before the board? If not, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.